The Board of Truth. The morning light spilled through the glass walls of Aria Vale's corner office. The skyline stretched endlessly, gleaming with ambition, just like the empire she had built. Aria, CEO of Nortec, was known for her precision, her discipline, and her uncanny ability to turn chaos into order. Every day began the same. A black coffee, a deep breath, and her whiteboard filled with quarterly goals and deadlines. But on a chilly Monday morning, something unusual caught her eye. A quote was written neatly at the top of the board in blue marker. "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is start again." Aria frowned. She hadn't written it. Her assistant hadn't arrived yet. And no one else entered her office without permission. She stared at it for a long moment. The handwriting was unfamiliar, soft, almost careful. "Strange," she murmured. But she let it be. That day, despite the meetings and reports, her mind kept drifting back to the quote. Start again. It reminded her of a time years ago, before the fame, before Tech, when she'd lost everything she built. She brushed the thought away. CEOs didn't dwell on the past. The next morning, Tuesday, the same coffee, the same routine, but this time a new message was waiting for her. You can't fix the future if you keep hiding your past. Her hand trembled slightly as she read it. She looked around the room, the cameras, the locked door, the empty floor early in the morning. No sign of entry. She asked her assistant, Mira, "Did anyone come in before me today?" Mira shook her head. "No, ma'am. I just got here." Aria forced a smile. Never mind. Probably some prank from maintenance. But inside she knew. No one had access to her office except her, Mira, and the night security team. The quote lingered in her mind all day like an echo from someone who knew too much. The hidden past years ago, before Tech's rise, Aria had co-founded another startup, Love AI, with her then best friend, Daniel Royce. They had a dream, to build an AI that could read emotions through facial cues, but a data breach and a betrayal by investors led to disaster. Love? AI collapsed. Daniel vanished from the industry. Aria carried the guilt silently. Many said she had been too ambitious, too ruthless, and that she had cut corners under pressure. She rebuilt her life piece by piece, this time determined to do everything perfectly, but the quotes on her board, they were like someone whispering from the ruins of her past. Day 3. The message deepens. On Wednesday, the quote read, "You didn't fail. You just stopped believing before the story was over." Aria froze. That was something Daniel used to say when they were struggling to fund Love AI. Word for word. Her chest tightened. Could it be him? Could it be him? No. He had disappeared completely. No social media, no contact, no trace. That night she stayed late, pretending to work, but really waiting to see who would come in at 10:45 p.m. The office was silent. The cleaning staff had left. Her screen glowed softly in the dark. Then a faint click. She turned. Someone had opened the door slightly, but before she could speak, a shadow slipped away. The only thing left behind was a sticky note on the table. Truth doesn't haunt you. It waits for you to face it. Aria's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The investigation. The next morning, she called the head of security. "I want every camera feed from this floor for the past 3 nights," she said. They reviewed the footage together. Nothing. The hallway camera flickered between 10:30 and 11 each night. A blackout. Someone knew exactly how to avoid being seen. Mira, her assistant, noticed Aria's exhaustion. "You haven't been yourself lately." Is something wrong? Aria hesitated. Then she said, someone's been writing quotes on my board. Personal ones, from before Viner Tech. Mira blinked in surprise. Do you think someone's threatening you? No, Aria said quietly. It feels more like someone trying to remind me who I used to be. The breaking point. By Friday, the tension in her chest had become unbearable. That morning, the quote read, "Forgive yourself." The world already has. Aria's knees went weak. Tears welled in her eyes. She sat down, staring at the board. Whoever was writing these? They knew her heart better than she did. She walked to the glass wall, looking out over the city she had conquered. For years, she'd worn her success like armor. No emotions, no mistakes, no weakness. But these words, they were dismantling the walls she had built around herself. She whispered to the empty room, "Why now? Why me?" On Sunday, Aria decided to return to the office alone. She needed answers. She sat in her chair, waiting until nightfall. At 11 p.m., the door opened, quietly. This time, she was ready. "Stop right there," she said firmly. The figure froze. A woman, slim and nervous, holding a blue marker. "Mira?" Aria whispered. Her assistant lowered her head. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Aria stared in disbelief. "You? Why?" Mira took a shaky breath. "Because you were turning into someone else. I've worked for you for 2 years, and I've seen how much pressure you carry. You never rest, you never smile, and you never talk about love AI. But sometimes when you think no one's looking, you stare at the old article framed on your shelf." Aria's eyes followed her gaze. The article, "Young Founder Faces Collapse of Dream Startup." Mira continued softly, "And I found your old interviews. You used to talk about changing lives, not just profits. I thought if I reminded you, maybe you'd remember the person who started all this." Aria sank into her chair, speechless. "And the personal details?" she asked finally. Mira hesitated. I spoke to someone." "Someone who knew you back then?" Aria's pulse quickened. "Who?" The door creaked open again, and a familiar voice answered. "Long time, Aria." Daniel stepped inside. For a moment, Aria couldn't breathe. The past stood before her. Older, calmer, but unmistakably him. "Daniel?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Before you panic, no, this wasn't revenge. I reached out to Mira when I heard she worked for you. I wanted to help you remember who you were before Viner Tech swallowed your soul." She stared at him, torn between anger and relief. "You went behind my back, into my office, into my life. And you called that help?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, because you built something amazing, Aria. But you forgot why you built it. You've been running from your past instead of learning from it." He walked closer, his tone gentle. "Love AI failed. You weren't the only one who suffered. I blamed you too at first. But time showed me something. It wasn't failure. It was the foundation of everything good we'd ever learned." Silence filled the room. Only the city lights shimmered against the glass. Aria's eyes softened. "You think forgiveness can erase what happened?" "No," Daniel said. "But it can free you from being haunted by it." He nodded to the board. "That's why we wrote those messages. So you could see that the story isn't over yet." Weeks passed. The strange messages stopped, but their meaning lived on. Aria began to change. She reinstated the open innovation day she once loved, inviting employees to share wild ideas. She started a mentorship program for women who'd failed startups, Her speeches became more personal, more real. In one interview, she said, "Success isn't the absence of mistakes. It's the courage to rebuild after them. I learned that sometimes the truth we hide from becomes the very thing that sets us free." She didn't mention Daniel or Mira, but both were in the audience, smiling quietly. Months later, on the same whiteboard, Aria picked up the blue marker herself. She wrote, "The past doesn't define you, it refines you." Then she looked at the skyline, and for the first time in years she felt peace. Behind her, Mira knocked gently. "Ma'am, the investors are here." Aria smiled. "Let them in." Today we start again. As the door closed, the sunlight hit the words on the board, glowing softly. A quiet reminder that even the strongest leaders sometimes need someone brave enough to remind them of who they were. And that sometimes the truest motivation doesn't come from success, but from forgiveness.